Welcome back to KD Live at 5. Media coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial has been criticized as sensationalism at its worst. Tabloid gone respectable as major networks spend millions of dollars on staff and equipment to bring the daily drama into our living rooms. While in Los Angeles on special assignment, we visited the criminal court for a first-hand look at what they call Camp O.J. These are postcards from Camp O.J. The media agenda begins about 7 o'clock in the morning when cameras jockey for position. They all want to be in place for the grand entrance. The curious line up early with their own photo gear, hoping for a shot into arguably the most sensational trial of the century. For crowd control, areas around the Los Angeles County Courthouse are roped off. The LAPD has an obvious presence. Plainclothes officer Jim Amarmino told us crowds are thinner these days, just 300 to 400 people a day.
It's been very orderly, no problem at all. It's people have been well behaved, been no problem whatsoever. Press has been good. We have the areas for the press, and everything's been perfect.
The tension builds until 8:30 when the daily drama begins. F. Lee Bailey arrives first, hurrying without fanfare past waiting crowds of reporters who say he is the toughest to catch. After almost missing Bailey, all eyes are glued to the top of the stairs, afraid of missing the next shot. A few minutes later, Johnny Cochran emerges from his car amid waiting security. He walks briskly down the stairs with reporters bombarding him with questions. While he didn't offer much this morning, we are told he is the most likely to talk. The photo op isn't over yet. Robert Shapiro is next. Mr. Shapiro, how long do you think the trial will go on? He sprinted down the steps, offering no more than a good morning greeting. Prosecutors use underground entrances and are rarely seen publicly. As the proceedings get underway inside, the show outside continues. Across the street from the courthouse is a county parking lot that has become known as Camp O.J. The media is renting the lot alone for reportedly $24,000 a month, but it is anything but luxurious for the price. Many of these people have literally been living here since June.
When we aren't up here doing our professional job, a lot of us read, some walk, but we can't go very far, and we entertain each other.
Since seating in the courtroom is very limited, journalists are crammed into this tiny press room on the 12th floor of the courthouse. They sit shoulder to shoulder watching the proceedings on TV. Even their programming is on a 7-second delay. Judge Ito and 2 court TV lawyers have kill switches to block out audio and video at any time. It happens with some frequency. The carnival atmosphere outside peaks at lunchtime.
It's O.J. buttons, angel pins, sidebar buttons.
Don't squeeze the juice, you got to cut the juice loose. Well, help him somebody. He needs a lot of help. He's in court for his life.
Let me do guilty or not guilty. That'll do.
Well, it's kind of a benchmark in history. It's kind of a little bit of history. Yeah, just a souvenir. Mark the time.
The curious come from all over the country. In fact, we met several people from the Pittsburgh area who were among the crowd. Rich Grimaldi of Connellsville entered the daily lottery for the 7 public seats available in the courtroom. He won a spot.
That was probably one of the most exciting days of my life, really, just to sit there and be part of this whole thing.
The story has international appeal as well.
I'm from Spain, and I'm here. We're making a story, a report about all the deployment of the media around this case. It's amazing. It's so curious for the Spanish people, our audience there in Europe, the importance, the great importance of having here in this country of this case. But I think it's so mad.
Media madness is a criticism many have leveled against those covering the story. Ron Olson, former KDKA TV reporter, now with KTLA, was the first reporter on the scene the night of the murder.
When you have somebody, I don't care who it is, as famous, as well-loved as O.J. Simpson, he's an American icon, you're going to attract a tremendous amount of attention. I don't know how you get around it. People want to know what's going on. Our ratings reflect that. Everybody's ratings, I think, reflect that.
This is a typical day at what has become known as Camp OJ. There is so much going on, the story is so competitive, and the atmosphere so surreal, it has taken on a life of its own. And it's easy to get caught up in it, easy to forget that 2 people died.
Stacy, I have covered national media events like the baseball drug trials and presidential visits, but I have never in my life seen anything like what I saw in Los Angeles.
The closest thing I can even come up with are the national conventions, Republican, Democratic national conventions, but at the same time, it's not the intensity that you just see.
They're short-lived, too.
I mean, you don't have it focused on 1 or 2 or 3 people coming in and out of the convention center. It's amazing. It really is.
And they expect that this may go on until October. So the money that's being spent at that level is just mind-boggling.
Well, the other thing about it that Ron Olson indicated, though, and the national ratings show, people are interested in this for whatever reason, whether it's replacing their soap operas, whether they're interested in the American judicial system, who knows, but people are watching it.
Even if you don't tune in, day out, you still tend to follow it.
Oh,
Even
absolutely.
if you're not addicted to it, you still tend to follow it. And you know, it's costing taxpayers a fortune. Tune in at 6 o'clock tonight and we'll tell you about the economics of OJ. It's really very interesting.
Were there any street vendors selling?
And Americans are putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to interest in the O.J. Simpson trial.
Jennifer, the trial is generating more money than some small countries, and you may be astounded to hear what the running tally is. Lynn Sawyer found out firsthand during a recent trip to Camp O.J.
And knowing that that's Mr. Simpson's blood on the rear gate, and we will definitively show that through the RFLP tests that are beginning today.
It has been called the trial of the century. Never has a case generated more interest, more media coverage, or more money than the O.J. Simpson murder trial.
OJ buttons, angel pins, sidebar buttons.
O.J. has become an economic superpower with a trade balance of goods and services. The Wall Street Journal reports that O.J. has produced more than the gross domestic product of some small countries, like Grenada. Here are some of the reported facts and figures. Legal fees for the defense team alone are close to $20,000 a day, while Shapiro, Cochran, and Bailey stand to tally $3 million or more for their time. Not counting an appeal, the meter is running on other related services. Jury consultants, paralegals, DNA specialists, and private investigators will add another $1 million to the tab. Los Angeles taxpayers bear the estimated $7 million bill to prosecute and house the football superstar. That includes $8,000 to soundproof a prisoner lawyer conference room. The economic byproducts of this sensational trial are remarkable as well.
All right, give me one of Judge Ito.
Eddie D. has 5 employees on 5 different corners selling buttons and T-shirts.
I've sold 30,000 buttons since June 18th, since I started this.
He updates the slogans as the trial continues, grossing over $10,000 a month on buttons alone. Raging Heart by Sheila Weller is expected to make more than $7 million, a mere pittance compared to the $30 million generated by the biography written by Nicole Brown Simpson's roommate, Faye Resnick. And Mr. Simpson himself is cashing in on the action. His book, I Want to Tell You, may put $13 million in the coffers of publishers by the time this is over. O.J. was paid a $1 million advance. Add to that his proceeds from signing 2,500 trading cards that collectors are snapping up for $500 apiece. The unprecedented media coverage has produced a mini economy of its own. The hundreds of reporters, photographers, editors, and producers descending on the City of Angels all have to eat somewhere, sleep somewhere, buy gas and other necessities somewhere, providing a windfall for many local hotels, restaurants, and other businesses. This is Camp O.J., at least part of it. Park trailers house everything from temporary office space to edit booth. And as you can see, microwave trucks and scaffolding provide perspective for live shots. All of this comes at quite a price. The rental for Camp O.J., a county parking lot across the street from the courthouse, is $24,000 a month. Add to that $13,000 a month to rent trailers and $300,000 to wire and equip press rooms in the courthouse. CBS and NBC are reportedly spending $30,000 a week just on trial coverage. ABC has scaled back to $20,000 a week. CNN, which the Journal reports is benefiting most from the O.J. obsession, doubled its Los Angeles staff to 70 reporters and editors. Its Nielsen ratings are up about 600%, and advertising rates are soaring along with them. Reportedly, a 30-second spot at 4:30 in the afternoon sells for $24,000, up from a pre-Simpson rate of just under $3,000. It's estimated Turner Broadcasting will pick up $45 million in ad profits by the time this is over. The numbers are just the tip of the iceberg, and they may pale when the jury finally reaches a verdict. According to the Journal, the O.J. GDP, gross domestic product, is approaching the $200 million mark already. But that may be chump change compared to the movie and book deals yet to come. Lynn Sawyer, KDKA TV, Eyewitness News.
Tomorrow on KD Live at 5, Lynn will show you what's happened to the exclusive Los Angeles neighborhood as a result of the same insatiable curiosity. New York Senator.
Some of you, of course, saw Lynn's reports yesterday on the O.J. Simpson trial. You went out to Los Angeles and you brought back images of what is going on outside the courtroom. That's what you told us about at 5 o'clock.
That's right, Stacey. And so far, we've seen how much this trial is costing taxpayers and how the media and vendors have turned the streets around the courthouse into Camp O.J. Today, our cameras, thanks to our photographer Steve Willing, will show you how a crime has changed several neighborhoods, perhaps forever.
I live in Dallas, Texas. My wife and all the family and my mom, we just came out to check it out.
They come from all over the country, from around the world, to see for themselves. O.J. Simpson's family still lives in the house on Rockingham, but any privacy they enjoy is behind closed doors. All day long, the curious, armed with cameras, parade past the Simpson estate in Brentwood to see the home of the superstar turned suspect. O.J. Simpson's house here in Brentwood has become a tourist attraction of sorts, much to the dismay of his neighbors. They've erected a temporary fence around the property to keep the so-called looky-loos off the grass. There's also, as you can see, a rug hanging over the iron gate to prevent you from seeing into the property. There is also a 24-hour security guard stationed across the street.
Stay off the driveway. It's private property.
An average home in the Brentwood area sells for over $1.5 million. Neighbors in this quiet, affluent community are fed up with the intrusion.
People sure don't like us around here. Go home, they keep yelling.
The community newspaper updates residents on police efforts to control the congestion. No parking signs, stepped-up surveillance, and private security are all part of the plan to control the local problem with international appeal. A few miles away, customers sip cappuccino at the Mezzaluna, where Ronald Goldman was a waiter and where Nicole Brown Simpson ate her last meal. It, too, has become an attraction. And finally, unwelcome guests line up on Bundy Drive. The murder scene holds an eerie fascination for those following the case.
I was just curious to where she lived.
Motorists on the busy street scream at tourists. Get a life, go home, let her rest in peace. But the parade of the curious continues.
Wow.
Stacey, we met people from all over the world. I mean, Spain, Italy, India, everybody coming just to see this. It's turned into a mega attraction, and I do sympathize with the neighbors because it's just got to be a nightmare for them. But at the same time, I can understand the curious.
Yeah, I know. It's totally fascinating. I even know an attorney here in town who went out for the Rose Bowl game, and they took a side trip just to go see this.
Sure.
And it's just fascinating to everybody.
It really is, and I have to say that it does do something once you see it. You know, other than in person rather than on television, you do feel something different about it.
Well, it also just gives you a spatial relationship to everything that they're talking about.
It looks smaller.
I had a feeling
the
at night.
Simpson house looks smaller, and the estate looks smaller than it did on television. I was kind of surprised.
Could you see the walkway at all where the bodies were found?
Yes, you could. Now there wasn't anything obstructing the view of the front of the condo at the murder scene. They didn't have any rugs or anything blocking the view. You could see in. But of course the gates were locked and closed, and at the Simpson estate they tried to block out as much as they could because his family still lives there. I can't imagine that.
Well, you have to wonder about the condo where she lived, because at some point, somewhere along the line, that's going to go up for sale, and who's going to want to buy it at that point?
I think that's been an issue already. I'm not quite sure how that's coming down, though, but it's not too good.
Okay. Good report, Lynn.
Thanks.
In Los Angeles, transcripts from that closed meeting between Judge Lance Ito and dismissed juror Jeanette Harris were made public today. In them, Harris paints a picture of a jury on the edge, divided along racial lines. She told Judge Ito the racial strife is so intense that black and white jurors won't even use the same gym. In addition, she said separate movie rooms had to be set up because they couldn't agree on which movies to watch. She also told Judge Ito she's sure the racial tension will have an impact on the case.
Author Dominic Dunn has a unique perspective on the O.J. Simpson trial. He occupies one of the few assigned seats in Judge Ito's courtroom, and every day he can see for himself the drama unfold. Well, Lynn Sawyer was in Los Angeles on special assignment and talked with Mr. Dunn about what many people are calling the trial of the century.
I am inundated with O.J.
He wrote The Two Mrs. Grenvilles, A Season in Purgatory, An Inconvenient Woman. But the book that comes next may be even more sensational. Dominic Dunn, award-winning suspense novelist and Vanity Fair columnist, has a permanent seat in the courtroom for the O.J. Simpson trial. High-profile cases are his specialty.
I've covered the Klaus von Bülow trial. I've covered the William Kennedy Smith trial. I've covered the Menendez brothers trial. I covered the trial of the man who killed Vicki Morgan, the girl who was the mistress of Alfred Bloomingdale, who was
But perhaps the most compelling influence on his perspective is that he, too, is a victim.
I had never attended a trial until I attended the trial of the man who killed my daughter. It was so appalling to me what happened, so utterly appalling, of how the rights of the victim did not equate with the rights of the defendant.
Since his daughter's death in 1982, Dunn has kept a watchful eye on our judicial system, and he makes no apology for where his allegiance lies.
I'm very pro-prosecution in almost all the cases that I cover.
His up-close observations of O.J. Simpson are insightful.
You know what is very interesting in the courtroom is that when they show the pictures of Nicole's dead body, which are just simply hideous, he never looks. And he always sort of turns in the other way. But when they show photographs to go with the testimony of his house, where he lived, and they have monitors, and there are all these things are projected into the monitors, and he stares at his house, and you know, and I wonder, what is he thinking? You know what I mean? Look what I had, and look where I am.
Is he guilty?
I think there is reason to believe that he probably is. And I think that it's going to come out, no matter how well Marcia does, it's really going to be proven when the DNA begins. And I was talking only today to one of the people on the DNA team, and they say that no one has any idea yet of how overwhelming the evidence is.
Will the jury find him guilty?
He will never be acquitted. And I don't think he'll ever be. I think he's got more chance of being convicted than acquitted. But I think he probably won't be convicted. I think it will be a hung jury. Those jurors have to go home to their own neighborhood when this is all over. I sense a lot of anger between the races on the guilt and innocence of O.J. Simpson. And I just hope that it's all going to be okay.
Lynn Sawyer, KDKA TV, Eyewitness News.
Well, Dominic Dunn is expected to add the O.J. murder trial to his list of novels on high-profile trials once it concludes.
In tonight's